This is Siberia's Wrangel Island, and it sits 90 miles above Siberia. With the extreme high latitude, this makes it one of the coldest and harshest places to live on Earth. With temperatures dipping well below freezing for more than 3/4 of the year, it is understandable why there's currently only one permanent resident and 12 scientists living here. This makes the average island's population density incredibly low. If you scattered the people out all equally on the island, they would only encounter one another every 230 miles. This makes Wrangel Island one of the most remote places on Earth, and being remote is what Alaskan native BlackJack would become very familiar with. She didn't know it yet, but she was about to endure one of the most challenging journeys almost any person could experience for 2 years, traveling to Wrangel Island and being the only returning survivor to tell the extreme Arctic tale. So how did she do it, and how did she end up there in the first place? Well, we first need to start at the beginning and learn how her unlucky adventure began. Ada was a mother of 3, of which 2 died in infancy, and her only surviving child, 5-year-old Bennett, was in need of serious medical assistance since he was suffering from tuberculosis. However, her husband could not financially support them and abandoned both of them, leaving her to care for Bennett all by herself. Luckily for her, through word of mouth, she heard that there was an expedition to Wrangel Island where a crew of 5 British explorers, Alan Crawford, Fred Moorer, Milton Gall, Lorne Knight, and Captain Valdemar Stephenson were in need of a seamstress and cook to help them claim the island for Britain. And both fortunately and fortunately for her, as we'll find out, she fit the role and took the job. The salary would be about $50 per month, which just for inflation today would be $815, which should be enough money to help treat her son. So on September 15th, 1921, they set sail on the silverware ship through the 90-mile trek of ice to see Wrangel Island. They arrived the next day and set up camp for what should have been 1 year with Captain Stephenson to lead the way. However, he never had plans to actually join the crew on the expedition and never went, leaving the inexperienced 5 to learn and live without a guide. Stephenson assumed that there would be plenty of game and meat to live off of, so there was no need for him to go, and only gave them 6 months worth of supplies, saying that there would be a supply boat to come pick them up the next summer in 1922. The crew managed to get by the harsh winter of 1921 with their supplies, and when the springtime hit, they managed to secure over 30 seals and plenty of ducks and geese. And for a while, it seemed that they could indeed live off the island and would soon have claimed it for themselves. But unfortunately for our crew, this would be one of their only glimmering moments, as when summer arrived, the boat that was supposed to pick them up never arrived as the ice was still too thick to travel through. Devastated, they all realized that they would have to endure another year in winter, but this time without the aid of their extra supplies. And as the next winter neared, all the game and wildlife that was once bountiful during the spring and summer quickly disappeared, and they had to rely on what little rations and reserves they had left. And by January 1923, their rations were completely depleted, and they became incredibly desperate for food and hope. So the crew came together with 2 different plans. Plan A, try to wait it out until springtime and hopefully find some game during then, which would most likely never happen, leading to their death of starvation. Or Plan B, have part of the crew set out to cross the 90-mile treacherous ice to reach the mainland of Siberia and hopefully come back to see the others with supplies and help. And so they end up deciding to go with Plan B, and on January 28th, 1923, 3 of the 5 set out with a dog sled carrying supplies to hopefully return and help the other 2. And the 2 that would be left behind would be Knight, since he was extremely ill with scurvy and could barely walk, and our girl Ada to help take care of him. However, this would be the last time that Ada and Knight would ever see the 3 again, as they would never return, lost in the unforgiving sea and ice. Realizing the horrible reality and predicament that she was in, Ada went into full Bear Grylls mode and learned all the techniques and skills necessary in order to survive. She taught herself how to set traps to lure white foxes, shoot birds, and build platforms above her shelter so that she could spot polar bears in the distance. She even experimented with the expedition's camera equipment and took photos of herself. As time passed on, she still took care of Knight as best she could until, sadly, on June 19th, 1923, he died due to his illness. Ada barricaded his body in boxes to help protect it from wild animals, and she also then built a gun rack right above her head in case polar bears got too close to her camp. She continued on her way of survival with many other close encounters, with an especially scary one from a mother bear and her cub. She was walking to see and set her traps to see if any foxes had been caught until, quote, "Finally, I realized it was a polar bear and I was about 400 yards away from my tent. I turned around and ran as hard as I could until I got to my tent. I was just about ready to faint when I got there too." And then finally, almost after 2 years of living in one of the most unforgiving islands in the world, Ada BlackJack was rescued by the Donaldson boat on August 19th, 1923, nearly 2 years after she first arrived. She was reunited with her son and flown back to Seattle, Washington, where she would use her payment to help treat her son's tuberculosis. But despite the seemingly happy ending, she was plagued with sadness and poverty even after her rescue, as most of the media and public didn't believe her story and accused her of not helping Knight or any of the crew. And what's even worse is that later Captain Stephenson, the guy who didn't even attend the trip, wrote a book about this whole ordeal and profited thousands of dollars, and Ada didn't see a single dime of it. She then later remarried and divorced another man, which she had another son named Billy, and later moved to Nome, Alaska with their 2 boys, where she herded reindeer and hunted game for the rest of her days until she sadly passed away in 1983 at the ripe old age of 85 in Palmer, Alaska, nearly 60 years after what was one of the most intense mother survival stories ever. Her son Johnson later described his mother with love as, "My mother was one of the most loving mothers in the world and one of the greatest heroines in Arctic exploration history. She survived despite the immeasurable odds stacked against her. It's a story of the determination to survive and to live on so she could be with her son and help cure the illness inside of him. Her survival story will be a great chapter in the Arctic history." It's honestly pretty crazy to me how the human mind and body can overcome nearly anything if you have the willpower and determination to do it. It might seem like there's an insurmountable mountain in front of you, but I truly believe from the bottom of my heart, if you put in the work and are 100% dedicated, you can accomplish anything. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and comment down below what was your favorite part about the video, and check out my other videos here.